Welcome to another episode of Coder Conversations. We have a very special episode. We have a bunch of all stars here today, and we'll be reviewing your resumes. So, if you guys can introduce yourself, starting with Jesse.
Hey everyone, my name is Jesse Warden. I currently work as a software consultant for web development here in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm joined with Her Majesty. I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm not next though.
Oh, I'm not next. Well, yeah, but you're a lady. Ladies go first, and you're in my square.
Okay. Well, hi, I'm Brandy Fortune. I work for a large fintech and I'm a UX design manager in Richmond, Virginia.
Yes, I'm next. Patrick Malloy. I got my pronunciation on there this time because there's some questions on that. But I work for CRC in Richmond. We have our own water bottles. It's actually not fintech, really old banking industry company, in case anyone was curious if we're doing industries.
I didn't get a water bottle. I'm just saying. So,
I'm a senior developer, Kevin Miller. I work at Broadcom. Been coding for about 6.5 years.
awesome. I'm Paul Dakessian, Director of Software Engineering at Microsoft. Also have my own side business doing interview coaching and resume reviews.
Absolutely. And so let's get started. Here's the first resume. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Did you want to start off, Jesse?
Yeah, this is my favorite one. I had actually a lot of comments on this one. So I liked the contact front and center with all of them, where you located, the phone number, email. That to me was really helpful, just because I've received resumes that literally have no email or phone number. And sometimes I like the person and I have no way to let them know, hey, I'd like to hire you for your job. So it seems obvious, but I've seen them missing. So I like that one a lot. The Vizio, Her Majesty and I, at least twice a year, we talk about missing Vizio so much. So I know there might be some, comments about the soft and hard skills, but that one, please do not remove that. That's amazing. So the things that I thought I would change, if you scroll to the top, the GitHub and LinkedIn links are really good, but you just need GitHub and LinkedIn. You don't need all that text. You could probably shrink that down some, just because there's no need to read it. It's hyperlinked. The skills, I actually thought the last four were actually really good, but I would remove the first four. Like, obviously you can communicate because you're chatting, with us on email, and you're organized, what your resume was to send it to us, etc. So I think those skills are kind of obvious, but like the Mongo, the Java, those kind of keywords are really important when you were either searching for a particular technology or you're in a database and those keywords need to come out. So I think that's good. I would just move those around. And then I think the last one was the project you have on the bottom right. I like that you describe the project because you're still in education. That's amazing. If there's a way to link to it, that would be great, because after reading that, I'm like, cool, oh wait, I can't check it out. And so that got really excited. So if there's a way to correlate that with like an additional direct GitHub link, that would be great. And then the award is actually really cool. If you could explain something about the context around how, I think that'd be fantastic. I think a lot of people love that, just the accolades kind of thing. All right, so that's it for me. I thought it was overall, those are my pros and cons I would change.
Absolutely. We just had Brian Pulliam show up. Hey, Brian, you mind introducing yourself to the audience?
Oh, hi. I'm Brian Pulliam, founder of refactorcoaching.com. 26 years in tech across TPM, Eng Manager, Zillow, Microsoft, Coinbase, and happily working a lot less hours helping other engineers succeed. And happy to be a part of the discussion about resumes. This is something I get a lot of questions about. So.
Oh man, absolutely. Really glad to have you. Patrick, you ready to go?
Yeah, could we scroll to the top?
Sure.
Just want to, do top down. Yeah, I had the same comment about the GitHub and LinkedIn links. I think you definitely need to have them. Maybe even, same criticism as Jesse. Don't need to have your UMI, just have GitHub, LinkedIn. I would throw it underneath the email, so then you have your contact info all in one space. Because if someone's looking to contact you, there's this marketing book. It's called "Don't Make Me Think," and it's about making things easy for the user, or in this case, the hiring manager looking at your resume. Of course, I'm like nervous because we have like resume experts, so I don't know. I don't want to like give like bad or there's that. But I would put the GitHub and LinkedIn links underneath the email and probably an icon just in case you know, we're visual people. They catch our eye. As far as the soft and hard skills go, I agree with Jesse. I would remove the soft skills and I would put them within the what should be, in my opinion, bullet points under the jobs. Like, are you good at communication? How are you good at organization? Where did you display analytical thinking? Thing I really like, cut downtime by 25%, cost forency up to 35%. Like more of that. That's what people want to see. Scrolling down for me, please. As far as the award goes, definitely keep that. As far as like who gets it and why they get it, it comes off as desperate, and I'm not saying that because I am judgmental, but there are judgmental people out there, and someone's going to read that and instantly trash it. So I had someone tell me not to put Eagle Scout on my resume because they might see me as a staunch evangelical conservative. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, well, the market's crazy, so I will not put anything like that on my resume. Again, that's not necessarily a criticism for me, but the market's weird. Um, I would use that space. I think it would be better served to describe how you earned it and why you deserve it. And then I'm gonna let the experts take from here, or Kevin, I guess, and then the experts.
All right, Brandy, did you want to take a crack at this one?
Sure. A lot of the stuff everyone said already, I agree with.
I'm so sorry, Brandy. I skipped over you.
Oh, that's okay. I'm also not an expert at this. I do hire people sometimes, so that perspective. I agree about the soft and hard skills. I would have loved to have seen if they took communication and made it a sentence in each piece of experience. So a sentence on communication, a sentence on organization, a sentence on analytical thinking. I think that'd be really great. There's a little bit of room here to maybe add some more to each of those experience sections. And then I agree about the awards. That sentence is slightly distracting. And I'd love to know if they had to do anything academic to earn it and more details about how they got it. And if they don't have that, you can say the award, but as soon as you have one job, you're going to remove that off your resume, most likely. And then, the last thing is that I would really love to see an introductory sentence at the beginning explaining what they're looking for. What kind of job do they want? What do they think they're really great at and they want to learn more about or get into?
Absolutely. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what was said before. I love the fact that the contact details is up front and center. It's really easy to get to. I would also agree, reduce the verbosity, just put GitHub and LinkedIn. And Brandy made a great point about putting what kind of role you're looking for right here. Just looking at this, I would assume maybe a front end role, but you can't necessarily assume that since Java is also here. Or probably move the project section more towards the top up here so that obviously this looks like more of a junior developer looking to get into the industry thing. So I want to see like what relevant experience do they have? It may, obviously you're not going to have job experience.
Oh, did you freeze for everybody else?
Yeah, he'll come back. He always does.
His cameras.
Otherwise, he'll come back on his phone.
Okay, I'll give him 5 seconds. Come on, Miller. Let's do this.
I love that so much.
Okay,
Come on, Miller.
All right. Well,
And we're back.
Okay, had a small hiccup there.
No worries, no worries.
How about you, Paul? What do you see with this one?
Let's start from the top. So for me, actually, I'm going to be super critical. So from my perspective, when I'm hiring, I've hired, I don't know, maybe 500 people now. Myself and recruiters, when you post an opening, especially for like a major tech company, you're going to get 100 to 300 applications in the first couple days, if not the first day. Each hiring manager and recruiter is going to look at your resume for about 6 seconds and say, hey, does this match what I'm looking for on a first glance? If it does, then they're going to go through and they're going to look a little bit further and say, oh, okay, like I do want to look at this person's experience. What y'all's feedbacks were saying is that hey, I'm not sure, is this a front end person, a back end person? That would have instantly had them go, I'm not going to enter this for this person. I got to get to 290 more of these things, right? So that's the first point. So it doesn't have a clear story. Remember, a resume is a sales document, and the purpose of the sales document is to get you that interview, right? And then you sell yourself to get the role. The click review, my GitHub, my LinkedIn, you're actually able to click those because when you're applying through a portal, we're going to see this through a web view, and links are not clickable on those. So if I was like, oh man, I really want to see your GitHub, right? I can't, right? People sometimes will make that mistake with this, or they'll make the mistake where they won't put their phone number on the resume. They'll put a little icon of like a phone, right? And they'll click it and say, click to call me. Like, great. I have no idea how to call you, right? So there's not a clear story here of what's happening. In addition, the way that the eye tracks on this, you're going to start at the name, you're going to go down to the experience, right? Micron Technology, Tokyo Electron. Those are bolded, but I can't see the titles. It's really hard for me to flow and see what is the title. So fab equipment technician, then field service engineer, right? It's not super readable. In addition, the bullet points, you don't have bullet points under each point that don't also show what are the business results that you did, right? You can kind of see it all the way on the bottom where you had like a really, really good one. Oh, sorry. On the top one, if you can go up a little bit here, maintained maximum uninterrupted flow of critical business ops, cut down time by 25% and cost of warranty by up to 30%. Why is that buried on the bottom of the resume, right? No one's going to read that. If this was me and I wanted to rework on this resume, I'd have the name on the top, contact information, a summary of qualifications like, hey, my name is Zobia. Not really, but like, it says Zobia, experienced engineer with 3 years of experience in this technologies, working on X, Y, and Z. And then on the position here, I'd have 3 or 4 bullet points. And I would say the top bullet point would be, here's what I did, and here was the business outcome. So cut down time by 25% for 300 engineers and cost of warranty by up to 35%, saving $5 million a year. Like, that's a wow, right? A lot of times people will put what they did, or they'll say responsible for this. That's cool. Like, I'm glad you were responsible for that, but what was the result of what you did? So that's what I think is majorly missing here. In addition, you're missing a big opportunity on your soft and hard skills. I would actually change it to just skills. I'm okay with putting communication and stuff like that on there. It's kind of nebulous, right? But I would actually put my tech up front if you were a tech focused person. And a trick to that is you look at the top like 10 or 20 roles that you really want to see, and you look at the required positions or required experience for that position. And you could take those keywords if you actually know those things and put them on your resume. You're going to start seeing trends of what people are hiring for right now, and you're able to get ahead of a lot of that stuff with matching, when people are searching for your resume. So that, and on the bottom, I would actually change. So she had the introductory iOS app Xcode, right? There's no information on what it is, nor is there like a link to it. So I would actually change this to like a 1-column type layout. In the top, I would have the name, contact information, summary. I'd have job experience after. I'd have skills and a job experience, education. And at the bottom, you can have, any extra projects or things that you want to have with links. And then also what you did, what technologies did you use, like switches, text fields, segment controls. Those are all drag and drop. And I've used Xcode, right? I can drag and drop. Now I've used everything, right? But hey, did I use like the singleton pattern? Did I refactor this into a observer patterns? And this is what I did that reduced my whatever by 15%. There's a lot that you can do and what you can showcase what you learned. And that's what I don't see in this resume. So I don't think it's going to pull as much as they're hoping for.
Great advice. Brian, did you want to take a crack at this one?
They'll make me go after him. Gosh, you got to do that to me, don't you? All right.
He
So-
secretly left you three
I
things to
know. No,
look.
it's fine. It's like I came in last. I deserve that. That's fine. So I think, let's see. I agree with everything I've heard so far. That's kind of a cop out, but like it definitely is sort of I'm a huge believer in that this is clickbait. Like this document is meant to be clickbait, so you can click on the ad and like go and contact me. And so any word on this document that is not helping you is hurting you. Like that's the way to look at this. It's like you're paying $100 for every word you put on this document. So you better make sure that like it's worth it, which is why you're hearing click here to view my, okay, you just spent $300. Like, no, get rid of that. What engineer wants to read click here to view my? No engineer wants to read that. We're lazy. We don't like to read. So especially not recruiters that have 300 documents to go through. I'm also, and there may be differing opinions. I'm really not a fan of putting city and state. Again, I just think it's a waste. Like, I don't need to know where, like, that you worked in Manassas, Virginia. Like, I don't know that that's going to convince me to reach out to you. And so, and if you took that out, you could fit fab equipment technician on the same line, and now you're not having a word wrapping issue with the type of the position actually being broken. I prefer seeing position listed first. I don't care about the company first. There's 1,000 jobs at that company. I care about what your job was at that company first. That's the first thing I want to read. So fab equipment technician is the first thing I want to see in experience. Like, what was your role? Oh, really? Where was it? How long were you there? And what did you do? And I would reiterate any SMART goals or measurable impact needs to be the first sentence, not the last sentence. Like, I would probably not read all 4 of those lines under Micron technology, and I would miss the most valuable thing because it's buried in that last sentence of the section. Yeah, right there. I don't like the word soft skills. Soft skills are some of the hardest skills to learn, especially when you get to like L5 and L6, which is not necessarily the focus of this person. They're more a little early career, but I would just list skills. I'm a big fan of having tech stack as a bullet point for each role, because what's not listed here is how many years did you have of MongoDB versus Swift versus Xcode. You may have done one of them for one project for 20 minutes, and the other one you could have 5 years of. And there's no way to show the ratio of your expertise when you just do a single list of skills. But if you put them in the role themselves as a single line item, when I start to see Swift, like across multiple roles, I can start to see that not only do you have relevant experience, but you have a lot of experience in one item versus the other. Let's see. The 2-column thing's a little goofy for me, only because I was trying to figure out if there was a relationship between the left and the right columns. Like, was there things that were supposed to align left to right? So it kind of confuses my eye a little bit. The soft and hard skills is a little spaced out for me. I think that's what's causing that confusion for me. Like that double spacing there, it doesn't look like a list to me. It looks like communication is aligned with fab equipment technician, and then Java is aligned with field service engineer. It's just getting a little hard to read. And then if you scroll down, I don't mind the award, but I do think it does call out something that is putting that you got a scholarship that allowed you to go to school and that you wouldn't otherwise have been able to go to, more likely for me to reach out to you and contact you. And I think the answer is no. So I don't think that explanatory sentence is useful. Education, same thing. I wouldn't list. I can go look up SUNY Empire State College and probably figure out where it is. But to the prior comments already, at this level, nobody's going to do that work. They're just not going to spend that much time on this document. And if you took out those locations, especially with those large fonts, you get more space to write a little bit more about each one of these roles that you've had. I also think field service engineer and what was the one at the top, fab technician. I think there's some work you could do there to show the transferable skills for the role that you do want. So if the target here is front-end engineer, I don't think these summaries necessarily convince me that being a fab equipment technician has prepared you for, like, you're not demonstrating to me the skills that you used on that job that actually would be helpful in a front end engineering role. I guarantee you there are. You may have to think about it a little bit. But what's described here is almost like not what we're looking for when we do front end, because you're so accurately describing what they care about. What you just described is what Micron Technology cares about when you do that role. But if your goal is front end, I want you to describe it in a way where this document shows me you know what I want in my role because you applied for it, but that you used empathy and what my perspective is as a hiring manager or as a recruiter in the skills that will transfer over. It's a very long answer, but hopefully that makes sense. Is Kevin frozen again? Oh yeah, there he goes. Oh, he's back.
He's mobile.
He had to go on his phone.
Oh, he's muted.
Give him a minute.
Okay.
Give him a minute.
I think the problem here is our feedback is just so hot. It's just overheating Kevin's camera.
Overwhelming the bandwidth of.
That's right.
Poor
Can't
guy.
be contained. You need
Well,
gigabit.
Kevin-
Kevin.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Now we can. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. But yeah, in the meanwhile, yeah, I'm still having connection issues. But what are some of the things you guys think makes a junior's resume like really pop and really stand out? Because obviously this is someone who's just trying to get into the industry. What can she really do to catch your eye as a junior?
I'll offer one thing, and then I'll popcorn over to Jesse. Is don't list every class you've taken as a skill on your resume. It's like so obvious when you only have a year or two of experience. Like, don't say you know 12 technologies, because that we see that a lot. We see a lot of recent grads that'll say, oh, I did this for one project 2.5 years ago when I was a sophomore, and so I'm going to put this on my resume. And you get to their skill list, there's like 34 technologies. It's like there are people with 20 years of experience that don't list 34 things of technology on their resume. Just be honest about where you're at. Just recognize we care about your projects and we want to talk to you about how those projects went, because that's what's different. Like, what sets you apart from everyone else that went to school there and took all the same classes you did? Don't list so much that's identical to what a peer student might have learned. Show me how you.
Okay.
You guys keep mics on.
There you go.
Okay, sorry about that, guy.
No worries.
Okay, as you were saying, Brian.
Oh, I would just say, don't overdo it. Be honest about what it is you know confidently, which is not a lot when you're early on. That actually stands out to me when I don't see 34 things listed on a college graduate's resume. And go deeper on the project things, the things that set you apart or that you did differently than other people. So, Jesse, over to you.
So yeah, I most of my interviews are not code interviews in terms of like tests. I usually just talk to the person, and I always ask the same 3 questions, regardless of who I'm interviewing for what level. I always ask, what is it that you're looking for and enjoyed? And generally that's, they either did a project as a noob, or, they're a veteran and they've done some project, and whatever those good memories are. The second is, what are the ones that you completely hated or disliked? What was it that was frustrating about the project, the tech stack? And the third is, knowing those 2 things, what do you actually want to do? And the reason for that is that some, especially the veteran developers, actually want to change a pace. So like, for example, we're hiring for a web dev, and they want to do front end stuff, but they don't say that. We're talking about back end for a while because they're just so experienced, and I'm very, learning a lot from talking to them. So that really helps reorient the trend that I've seen with juniors that they go to boot camps. And the pro and con of these boot camps is that they have a massive amount of projects that they've done. Some of them are like 70 GitHub repos deep, which is amazing. Some of them are actually not forks. They're like, they start a new project, trying a new idea. And the issue is I don't know from a quality over quantity perspective, which one you want me to focus on. Like sometimes I think either Brian or Paul brought it up, but it was like, you only have like 30 minutes to an hour to talk to this individual. Like we have multiple of these interviews per day. And so I want to be able to focus on like, the cool projects. So I would put out of all your projects, the ones that you think are best, because those are wonderful conversation material. And not like, I think everyone already said it, but grouping the tech stack that you used in that is important, because I'm going to ask questions about that tech stack. Oh, we're restarting again. Yeah, so the Redux.
Jeez.
No worries, we can hear now. So yeah, the like the Redux or the JavaScript or the TypeScript or something like that, even if you put only 3, sometimes you can highlight what you liked or you learned about it. And I think that's a major pro, because as soon as you learn something, like really digging this, your passion's going to come out. So if you think of those technologies, even if you use 5 technologies, you have to pick one because of white space, pick that one that gets you super excited. Because when I ask a question about it, it's a launching pad for you to like educate me on all the cool things you learn and stuff. I think the last thing too is from the education perspective, what did you do? A lot of people in school will do side projects. They'll do robotics club. They'll do, one kid was actually doing hardware, even though he was software, just because he wanted an excuse to play with it. Some of those clubs and extracurricular activities, conferences you went to, user groups, that's amazing, because that's a gateway to tell me about yourself, the tech stack you like, what you've done with it, what you learned, what your current passion is, and what are you learning right now. And most of all of that is tailored to the job you're hiring for. So for example, if you're a front-end dev and you're trying to get a position and they keep talking about React, they never mention back-end things, tailor those projects to the React ones, the front-end ones. Conversely, if they're doing a lot of serverless and stuff, take out all the front-end stuff, put your projects that like have some kind of back-end. And so that way it makes me think that you're more of a back-end person. You can talk about it. So that's what I look for a front-end person. I'll popcorn to Her Majesty.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
So
junior dev, junior
Not
design.
me. I can tell you that much.
Well, I think if you look at the resume, you'll notice that it says AmeriCorp's hybrid STEM educator, and the date on that is actually while they were in school. So the way the resume is made is like they're trying to make it look like they had more experience. But to what Jesse was just saying, if that hybrid STEM educator had something to do with the school or was a school program, I want to know you did extracurricular. I want to know you did more than they required. But it's almost like the first job. So I'm curious about that. And then when you look at the education there, they have listed out an associate's and a bachelor's, and I'm not sure that's necessary. And like y'all are saying, go way more into what they did at the school. And that introductory iOS app, I kind of have a feeling they did that at school. And so if they did, and that was like featured at like some kind of a demo, if they did a demo for it and they got feedback, or they did user testing on something, I don't know. I'd love to see more information highlighting how in college they went a little bit above and beyond.
Who you popcorning to?
You pick.
I popcorn to Patrick.
You said that begrudgingly. I'm going to remember that. Just kidding.
You're below me now.
It's because we're both Richmond. I have to give you a hard time. So I guess my perspective is going to be a little different in an ignorant perspective, just because I am 2 months into my first dev job. So as far as, I mean, I have like general resume guidelines that I've followed over the years, but I don't necessarily know as much as Brian or any other expert in terms of what to look for a resume. But I will say for me, what really helped me was highlighting my project work, because that's what ultimately got me hired. The company that I interviewed with, that I took the offer from, that I work for now, they needed a guy that was like UI heavy, that like knew how to use SAS, Tailwind, um, React, but was comfortable with learning Vue, was okay with learning C# and pretty, whatever else, learning, okay, a front end guy that was good with learning back end and anything else they needed, wearing all the hats. And I was all for that. The way I did that on my resume, though, I didn't put any professional experience on there, except for the fact that in my support role, I created an app where it showed, basically I had like 2 bullet points. Like one bullet point was like what I did at that role. It was a support role. And then the second bullet point was built an app that saved me 3 hours a week. And then I calculated that. I basically framed it as save the company X dollars a year, which is, whatever my salary was, per hour times the 3 hours a week that I was saving, if that makes sense. So, I built something on the job and I didn't have to. So I think that, like, we talked about that in the interview, and I think that's what like really got the conversation going. And then, just having like links are great, but if you have like the actual link printed out so people can just like copy and paste, because most documents, as far as resumes go, whether it's email, whether it's something like a web portal viewer, like we were talking about earlier, someone mentioned that earlier. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to click on a link, but you can copy and paste, or if nothing else, if you really are curious about the work, which for 300 resumes, I doubt someone's gonna like type https://www.github. You know what I'm saying? But if you at least like make it easy for them to look at your work, talk about your work, I would say honestly get rid of at least one of the professional experiences, and then someone mentioned a project section. That is your bread and butter, what you did in school, AmeriCorps, and the project work. You're looking for a development job, show them that you can do that. That's all I got.
Who you popcorning to?
Oh,
Kevin.
to Kevin. Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, that was great advice, man. So what I would say is, as a junior developer, I would say like have a focus. Like, what are you trying to come on as a front end developer, back end developer, and whatever you pick, completely tailor your resume to that. And I would say you need to have something unique about yourself. Like for me, what really helped me get my first programming job was having a programming blog. The people that hire you, that bring you on, they want to see that you're passionate about coding. They want to see that you're just not trying to get in the industry for a quick buck. Like, what are you doing that sets you apart from the other stack of resumes that are coming in? And yeah, I would say also like take the fluff out. People, these companies, they know exactly what they're looking for. So the more you can align yourself with that, the higher the probability of you getting a job. So for example, you're trying to get a programming job, so there's no use for these the first 4 points on that on the soft and hard skills. Focus on the technologies you've used, how you use them, and how long you've used them. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my part. How about you, Paul?
So I'm actually going to take this from a different angle. Hiring a junior engineer, and actually hiring in general, is a risk on the business. So for me, when I'm running my teams, I want to minimize every hire's risk to as small as possible. What do I mean by that? Especially when you're hiring a junior engineer, you don't know what you're going to get. And is it going to be someone you're going to hire that really isn't passionate about the role? Is it about somebody who doesn't know if they want to really be an engineer? Is it someone who doesn't have the self-motivation and drive to push past the typical blockers that most junior engineers are going to hit? Not, are they afraid of asking questions, whatever? Oops, it looks like we lost Kevin. Poor guy.
Kicks us all off every time.
We are back. I'll give an example.
Yeah.
So I had 3 teams I was running at Microsoft that had we were hiring. I was hiring 15 people a year. I think we ended at like 51 people that I was running, and I had a couple spots, not a lot, but I had a couple spots for some junior engineers. Right. I always like to mix my teams with juniors, mids, and seniors. Everyone's learning from each other. You know, they get good perspectives, things like that. And I hired this guy who was very adamant on like, yeah, I want to be a software engineer at Microsoft. I want to be a software engineer, and gets on board. First month in, it's like, yeah, I'm not really sure if software engineering is for me. Like, bro, like you could have told me this during the interview, right? And a couple months later, he just quit and he went back to school, right? Hired another guy, not at Microsoft, but a different place, who was like, wow, you really have to keep learning as a junior engineer. I'm like, what are you saying, right? So from the hiring manager's perspective, especially when I'm like coaching my managers or whatever on like, here's who you should be hiring. I always look at it as junior engineers are always going to be a risk. You're an unproven quantity until you have a couple years of engineering experience under your belt. And it is your job, not only with your resume, but also with your conversation, with your interview, with your outreach to the hiring manager, to showcase your talents, showcase your passion, and minimize the engineering hiring risk for you. Because if I hire you and it takes 2 months to hire somebody and you're it, then it takes a month to get you started, then it's going to take you 3 months to get ramped, and then you decide you don't like it. I just wasted almost my entire year, which could have been productive. And if I have a inkling of doubt, right, on is this person going to be a good hire, then you're not going to get hired, right? Because I'm not going to take that risk with my very few billets.
Yeah, that was great advice. Yeah, let's pull up the next one. Did y'all want to do the senior one or the game developer?
Are you going to like say what we like about that one or give some positive feedback?
Sure.
So, like I said, I liked the Visio. I thought the actual description of the experience like helped. Again, there was both what you did, but also there's actual, at least in the top one, a tangible business result. And a lot of the people I work with, especially from a product perspective, are interested. Like, you're a developer, but you need to care about results, not just the tools. I think that's awesome. And then the schooling has if you look at some of the schooling experience is what they actually studied, but then it's varied enough with the skill set and hard skills. So when I'm looking for actual technologies, they're there. So I thought those are the 3 things that I really liked about this. Plus the fact that I'm actually one of the people that when I interview people, I do go to their GitHub and like tear through all their projects for stuff to talk about. So the fact that that's there, it seems silly, but it's so awesome to have a GitHub link. So I really like that too.
It did that at my job. I was going to say that's how they vetted me before I got the interview.
Yeah, from a Paul, what do you think? I know, like everything you said, I've been writing down from notes perspective, which is amazing. I appreciate this is free consulting, right, Kevin? Just make sure this is free consulting. Okay, so assuming this is free consulting, right? Yeah, I know. I was like, oh my gosh.
I get paid in.
I can tell you, Paul, that I like the way it's laid out. I think it looks really nice and clean. And yeah, there's some tweaking that could happen, but I think it's visually pleasing. But I am the designer in the room, so sorry.
And I'm colorblind.
So yeah, what do you like, Paul? Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh,
I'm
okay.
colorblind.
So what do you like about this? Because if you like it, it must be good.
I don't like it.
It has to be.
Sorry. I unfortunately don't. I think it's got some good bones. You can like massage this, but as it is right now, this is one of those, I see these kind of resumes all the time where it's like, I'm applying to 300 jobs, 400 jobs, and I'm not getting any interviews. Right. Why is that? And unfortunately, this is a lot. This is a common resume that you get. So I can't say
bias because I'm only reviewing like 10, and I had the HR vetted, but it sounds like you go through all of them yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah, because it looks like for me, like I love recruiters. Any recruiters watching this, I love you guys. I have some fantastic ones I've worked with, like Jemana Kisro, if you're watching this, you're amazing. Recruiters will sometimes say yes or will sometimes say no to an engineer that I would do the opposite for, right? Because they're not technical evaluators. They're fantastic on reading people. Like, is this person going to be a culture add? Is this person going to be somebody that you want to work with? They're great at that kind of stuff. But I would not expect them to know the difference between Java and JavaScript, right? I wouldn't expect them to know the difference between C++ and C#, right? So why would I offset one of the most important jobs as a manager to somebody else, right? I think that's irresponsible. So I look at all the resumes.
So you got a question from the audience. It says, should I remove projects from my GitHub that I built when I first started?
Are you proud of it? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. Are you proud of it? Is it deployed? I mean, would you wear it as a t-shirt? You know, ask these questions. You need to take pride in your work as if it's representing your whole DNA, your great grandparents. Like, you need to put blood, sweat, and tears into it. I'm not joking. I mean, I know I sound ridiculous in saying this, but I spend 40 hours a week on top of working a full-time job, just tweaking the most nonsensical things until I finally could say, yes, this is not perfect, because I don't use that word, but this can go into the public, this can go into the wild. And if you haven't gone through that process yet, it will hurt, but it is necessary. Kind of went on a diatribe there. Sorry.
I would personally say keep it, because it kind of shows your progress, your history as a developer. Like, if I can look at your first project and then look at your last project and see a huge amount of progression in your skills, to me, that looks good.
If you have a technology on your resume and you have a GitHub project you could have on your resume, but you remove it and you don't see it, you're doing yourself a disservice. I mean, if it's a garbage product, get rid of it, sure. But I agree with Kevin. You know, it's good to see a progression. It's good to see a different set of tech stacks. You should also order it so your most impressive projects are at the top.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's getting this list? Because if it's just your raw GitHub repositories, like, they allow you to customize that now with almost near HTML level capabilities. So you can prioritize what projects they see first. But more importantly, I can't link to my GitHub anymore because there's this ridiculous stuff there. And it's no longer about my progress as a dev, which, again, for me personally, take recruiters out of it. Like, it really boosts my self-esteem to see where I came from, like, not just last year, but 3 weeks ago. But now there's things on there that are forks, experiments, bug fixes around security that are actual project work. And so when somebody asks, why did you change one line of Lodash? It's like, because I was fixing a CSV. It had nothing to do with coding. You know what I mean? So you want to control that narrative. So I would have two. Oh, lost. But yeah, versus having like a big list, and I'm supposed to go through there and figure out what's the best ones. You know what I mean? So control the narrative. Pick the projects you think are best. Order them like Paul said. I think that's really helpful when I'm reviewing them too.
And as a hiring manager, we do not look to see if you have a dot in every day for a year before you can get hired. That's I know OCD me wants to see that person, but
like, the grind culture, man. You're right. Like, that's, I think, someone of your caliber telling that to juniors is very impactful, because they're glorified when they have the memes about like the hotel shower tiling, and they talk about that, and it's like, it's funny, but like, everyone just assumes that's the norm.
I chased it for a while personally.
Yeah, and like, sometimes if that's your shtick, keep going. We're never gonna discredit hard work, but from a grind culture perspective, yeah, like, the expectation is I would rather see code you digged versus. And we're back.
I really need to thank God from AT&T. It's terrible, man.
Yeah.
No worries. Verizon isn't any better, buddy.
Do you not have AT&T fiber out there?
I think so.
I was gonna say, because fiber is definitely the move. I know Bell Atlantic South ended up becoming AT&T, and they have fiber, and then in the north, even though Virginia is definitely, quote unquote, the South, we have Verizon wire or, fiber.
He's too far from SpaceX. That's his problem. Like if he was closer to SpaceX.
I do want to say something about the GitHub though. Something I did, we were talking about, I think Jesse, you mentioned this as far as like structuring your GitHub so then it shows certain projects. Like I had on my resume, which was not great. I'm not. And we're back. And we're back. Kevin's getting a workout in, y'all. But while he's doing that,
Oh man.
yeah, this is how developers get their exercise. They run a podcast. Now, but as far as
in the other room.
GitHub goes,
You were
like,
saying on GitHub. That's the last time I heard from you, GitHub.
I had so on my resume, I had my project section, and it was my 4 favorite projects. I think it got up to 6 actually, maybe 4. I don't know. Let's say 4. And then on my GitHub, I would have the same 4 in the same order, so it would match. And then I would have like the GitHub / your name, so it would have the about me. It's like what I'm working on, what I'm trying to collaborate with, what my goals are, and then I would have like my personal statement on my resume would match my personal my about me section in my GitHub, so everything connected. And then my LinkedIn was the same too, so like all of these personal statements were the same. They're uniform on every single platform. So it's like if someone goes to, like, say someone wants to go on LinkedIn because they're HR, they'll see my about me and they'll say one thing. But if someone has something different on their GitHub because the development manager is hiring them and it says something completely different from what the HR person saw, then that's going to create a communication breakdown. And that's just one. Any reason for someone not to hire you is a reason for them not to hire you. That's the unfortunate nature of this process. And that's just how it is. So make sure everything's uniquely uniform and standard. Don't make people think, make it the same. That's my little spiel. I'm really bad at ending my contributions. I kind of just like
I'll cut you off. How about that?
That'd be great.
Yes.
Honestly, that'd be great. I'm very okay with that.
Can we do Bjork's next, or did you want to do the gamers? Like I like Bjork's because
I'm gonna do Bjork's. I actually have some. I spend the most time looking at that one.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
Can one of y'all do the screen share because I don't want to cut off if I get kicked off again.
Can you do it, Patrick? Because I don't have access.
You don't have access. I have a hey Paul. I have a 10-year-old MacBook. Would you mind doing it?
Yeah, let me load it up. Hold on.
It's like we just passed the buck all the way around the podcast. No one wanted to do it. Kevin at least had a legitimate excuse. Well, I guess I'm the only one who didn't have a legitimate excuse. Jesse had a legit excuse too.
I'm great.
I can do it, but it sounds like my laptop is about to take off out of Dulles Airport. Like it's overheating just from dealing with.
You said Bjork's?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah. I think that one we all looked at a lot. The game dev's interesting too from a perspective, but I think we still have this web thing going. I wanted to keep the momentum on that because I really like.
That's also why I said it. You just said it first.
There's a crazy angle with game dev too, just from the design perspective, even though I put them on a pedestal from a developer perspective.
Is this coming through?
Not yet.
I do not see it on my side. Our local resident Melon app expert Kevin may be able to guide you through this.
Yeah, I wonder if it's only.
Here we go.
Oh shit!
I was gonna say it's probably in the bottom pop-up
It's
screen.
a permissions issue. I got to reboot Chrome if I'm going to give it permission to share.
Come right back.
Okay.
That's what's great about web apps. You can just refresh.
Might as well. I would say, Kevin, is there a
Everyone
way to
talks about
download Melon
desktops,
apps so the performance is better for us as
Yeah.
individuals?
Do they have a desktop version?
You're
Oh,
muted.
you're muted.
Kevin.
Okay, can y'all say that again?
Is there
Yeah,
a
do they have
desktop
a desktop
app for
version?
the Melon app?
Desktop app. All I know is just the web, the web link version. I don't think it's an app.
How about now?
There we go.
All right.
Wait, y'all see it? Okay, yeah.
Woo!
There you go.
All right. So who's on
Okay.
top?
I'll go
Looks like
Yeah,
you're
let Her
on-
Majesty go first.
because I'm gonna have the least techie response. So I think a lot of the feedback from earlier, from the last one, stands for this one. So I'm not going to go into that stuff just because. But the layout of this one is distracting and bothers me. Like visually, the relevant skills, professional experience, relevant projects, literally is all you see when you look at this. And when we think about hierarchy on a page and what we really want to see first, those are just headers. They're not the most important thing. And then when we look at like all the lines that are going, like under education, there's the extra line under one, there's one under additional information. It's just distracting. With that said, as I said earlier, I did like the last resume and I found it easier to read. And there's a reason, because when we in user research and watching people read, we find that there's a width that things are easier to scan and read with. And some of this is like super long, really, really long sentences. So it's a little bit hard visually for me to read through it quickly. And the bullets, some of them are like longer than others. So it's nice when it looks kind of consistent all the way across, but I know y'all are going to hit everything else. So that's what I'll say for now.
Who you popcorning to? Patrick? Dude, we're married. All right, fine. Patrick, she popcorn to you. And of course you guys laugh. I appreciate that. That's great wingman on the podcast.
I'm just immature. That's what it is. Okay, so my first critique is I don't know where this guy is located because he went to school in Australia, but he says he is fluent in Swedish. So if I am working, say, if I have a 100% remote company, it doesn't necessarily matter. I would like to know how proficient he is in English, because that's going to be probably the tying language, unless this is a Swedish company. But even then, if he, it could be a time zone issue. If he went to school in Australia, most people stick around for a year or two. I probably would look at other applications just for that reason. So in this instance, I would definitely give, I know a few people have said don't bother with location, but for this, we're talking about multiple, like different continents. At least like tell us what continent you're on. So there's that.
Time zone.
Yeah, time zone. I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't need to know exactly where you are, just the time zone, I guess. So the only other thing that I'm going to say is when I was going through like dog doo-doo resume phase for me, when I didn't know what I was doing, I discovered that Harvard has their own template for resumes. Granted, you're going to have to tailor it yourself for software, because not everything is going to apply. But they have the biggest thing I learned from the Harvard resume is that template, they don't use any color. So get rid of color. As far as like all the hyperlinks, like type it out if it's that important. If it's not, then get rid of it. But I'm going to be generous and save the rest for everyone else.
Who you popcorn to? Who?
I guess you, big dog.
Really? What a nice guy. All right, so I'll do the negatives first. So the only thing it's actually kind of a hybrid negative is that a lot of the early work that we were doing in front end dev actually required a portfolio. So it wasn't about GitHub or projects or code. It was actually visuals with code. And so your portfolio was actually a completely separate resume that you often would review in person. But oftentimes, if you didn't get the interview or is just emailed from a friend, somebody's going to have to review that portfolio. They're looking at what you can reveal. I think nowadays, if you don't have that much experience, at least bring one of your portfolio projects and prominently show that. Because if you're trying to do, like, let's say pixel perfect websites, show me that. If you're trying to do a lot of the 3JS stuff where you're doing a lot of these 3D virtual environments for ad agencies, show me that. Even if it's a JPEG, I want to click and see that immediately, because that's relevant to the project that I'm hiring for either this weekend or for the next 6 months, right? So that portfolio is good. You have the link, but bring something here, because I don't want to have to go elsewhere since I'm already at, the digital resume. I think the only other thing I thought that was hard about this one was, like Her Majesty was saying, it's just the the hierarchy. I want to see the skills and the relevant experience that's relevant to my project that I'm hiring for. And so a lot of these things around skills and stuff are from a tech are great, but they take up like a huge section. So I need something targeted to me. But what I did love was, again, contact information front and center, the skills, the time. I like having the years helps from okay, you did C# for 3 years, so you probably know some of the basics of the .NET runtime, not just the APIs, which is fantastic. With your C++, you probably haven't dealt with a lot of the linker llama drama that you have to go through. But I think for some of the other ones, like you don't need months, like it's either years or months. You don't have to put both. So I like how you have Unreal Engine. Is there a reason for those 2 extra months? Like, was that because it was 2 months with like the developer of it? Like, what's that for? And then Godot is like, the fact that you have that even for 1 month, that makes sense, because Godot is like a completely custom slash, it's almost like Python, but not really, almost like C# but different. So I think that one's actually good to have at least a month there. But the Unreal Engine, you don't need 2. And then the game dev shipped, I think is amazing. So a lot of the game dev companies, some of them are very strict about, it's fantastic you worked on, the Tomb Raider, but did you actually ship it? Or was that the one that never actually shipped? Or did you work on that game and you weren't there when it shipped? Like you left when you were, frustrated with part of QA. So the fact that you actually have released or shipped on your actual games that you worked on is like amazing. It's for whatever reason, people leave that off when they don't, work on games, and like half their games weren't actually released. It's like, look, dude, we need somebody who can ship and recognizes the QA upfront cost and all that kind of stuff. So I like this one a lot. I thought the contact information, the skills, outlining the time on which ones are relevant, and then just the actual portfolio, I think that's fantastic. Having that, together, I thought was good.
Can I just?
I guess I'll
interject real
popcorn to Patrick, and then I'll popcorn to Kevin. Yeah, hit me.
So I already went, but I just want to interject real quick. The Unreal Engine, like not being a game dev guy, it looks like it's Unreal Engine 4/5 of a month to 2 months, but I think it's supposed to be Unreal Engine 4 and 5.
Oh, the version 4 and 5. Okay.
So I have a question for Paul, actually. For all the less than 6 months, would you just like replace it with less than 6 months or something like that? Or like, how would you approach that if it's worth putting on there, but they don't have say it's 4 months and maybe it's 6 months by the time they update the resume for a new application? Like, how do you approach that?
I actually wouldn't even put the time on this at all. But I think one of the biggest things, I actually want to piggyback back to what Brandy was saying. So the format of this is so bad that what's going to happen is you're going to take this resume, you're going to submit it through typically a portal, right? And that portal is going to scrub all the formatting out. And what's going to happen with this, after all that formatting is scrubbed, is going to be turned into a plain text file that's going to be completely jumbled, right? The check marks, all these little brackets, everything, it's going to mess up all the sections, and it's going to turn into like an unreadable mess. So yes, the months, the years is a problem, but the format, like what Brandy was saying, actually is going to do this one from a visual perspective a disservice, and then from a automated systems perspective a disservice as well. It's going to become completely unreadable.
All right, Kevin, what do you think?
Okay, yeah, I'll take a stab at this one.
Hit it.
So yeah, what I did like about this one, I kind of like the order of everything. Like you have the relevant skills at the top, then your experience, then some of the projects. It kind of gets to the point of what you do. But again, like the first one, I don't know what kind of role you're necessarily applying for. Are you trying to be an Unreal Engine dev, or are you trying to be a Unity game dev, or just a C++, game engine programmer? Like, what are you trying to do exactly? That's kind of vague. So, if you're a game development company that's working with a Unity engine, I guess it's more of a Unity app because you've done that the longest. But yeah, we need more clarity on what you're trying to do. Let me see. Oh yeah, I can you scroll all the way up a little bit? I don't think, is there a link to a GitHub or anything?
There's the portfolio link.
Okay. So
then,
yeah, I did.
That's it.
Yeah, I was say take that blank page off at the bottom there. And yeah, I did go to the website, but I didn't see a GitHub there. The projects did look good, but I think companies want to see the code more so than just the finished product, because they kind of want to see like your coding style, whether you're following good coding practices. So I would say, yeah, link your GitHub. Have more of a focus, like what are you trying to do, what kind of role do you want, and tailor your resume more towards that, as opposed to just kind of listing everything you've dabbled with. The thing about resume that we keep on harping on is that you're attempting to market yourself to a company. You have to sell one particular thing. Like you go to Burger King, for example. Burger King doesn't show like a bunch of tacos, chicken strips, and all this other things on their advertising. They show hamburgers, like first and foremost. So what are you? What product are you? And really hone in and focus on that. Now I would say that's it for my part.
Destroy Paul, or be positive, or both.
Oh, that I gave my feedback earlier. But for me, as a final summary on this one, it doesn't tell a clear story. So there's no summary section. I don't know. Like looking at this, I'm skimming through. It's like, okay, great. Like it sounds like you had an internship, but I don't really know what you did. Right? Bug fixing bugs using in-house debugging tools. That's cool. Like I have no idea what that means. Right? Collaborated with artists and designers. Like, did you go to a meeting once a month? Okay, great. Like, but what did you actually do? What were the results of what you did? Right? Like, especially for a more junior game programmer here, the key is going to be showcasing the results you specifically did. Like a lot of times, we're taught in school, like it's a we thing. We did a collaborative project. That's great. But we doesn't get hired. Like I get hired. So you have to brag about what you did. And this does not, unfortunately, have a story of what specific business results this person did and how efficiently they were able to do that. So, that's I think the biggest miss.
If I had the budget, I would bring this person in just to talk about how they're Swedish but went to school in Australia and they've been developing consistently for 3 years. It looks like they have experience. I mean, they check all the boxes. It's just formatted in a way that will never get to someone, I assume, that's hiring from what I'm hearing.
Brandy had a comment. 1 sec.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, Brandy.
Just for what Paul said, the bug fixing bugs using in-house debugging tools, just fix that sentence because it's too many bugs.
It's funny.
You should have like SEO your resume and have it on white text on a white background, like bugs all up and down all the side here. It works. Trust me. No, I'm just kidding.
That's awesome. All right. So is Aaron's next? Or do we have any more questions about this one? Oh, it's a private. Okay. No. This is my pin, you noob. You guys are funny. Yeah, so Aaron's
I told Jesse a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. I deserve it. It was pretty obvious. The next one, do you have that one, the Aaron one, Paul? Because like this one was hard for me.
Let me see.
Just because I know we're supposed to be I guess critical or something, but it was really difficult for me to not be biased because I got really excited. So
we have to go over this one.
Hey, I was going to say,
let me show you why. Sorry, Aaron. You guys see that?
Should be pulling up for me in a second. I'm probably on a lag.
yeah.
I'll see it when Jesse sees it. We're in the same time zone.
It takes a couple hours to fly.
Yay! Yeah, we can see it.
There we go. Is that what it looks like once it's goes through the formatter or whatever?
Yeah, just loading it up. That's what it got.
Oh man.
All right, so I'm gonna go first because I'm always the positive guy. So I actually don't have any negatives about this. I got really excited where, for reading left to right, who is this person? Oh, it's Aaron, because he has a 70 billion point font. Like, that was amazing. This is a name to remember. Second, the same criticism I think Kevin and Paul and everyone's had throughout this is, what are you hiring for? And they're like, JavaScript engineer. So immediately it's apparent, like, okay, I'm going to remember this Aaron Cat is a JavaScript engineer. That's fantastic. Not pigeonhole into, well, I'm front-end only. I only do CSS, or I'm only Node. I don't like front-end people. Like, JavaScript, doesn't matter where it is. It's awesome. The second, contact info was everywhere. Like right there on the left. I like that. The portfolio, very similar problem. And sometimes when I'd get an email is that link wasn't clickable, but that link I can read and type manually because it's github.com/the name. So it's amazing. The open source crushed it. So the Typer.js, there's no such thing. Oh, wait, they made that. That's amazing, with a short blurb of what it was. The create new app was extremely ballsy move. Anybody who thinks that they can do better than Webpack and Vite is like, on my, like, you're cool list. They really take a really hard problem, and that is generating front-end apps, which to this day are a bloody mess. So the fact that they found, a desire to build that is great. The date picker, the hardest thing to do outside of Elm, outside of JavaScript and Vue, it's a hard thing to do. And they're like, yeah, I bought a date picker, no big deal. And then the Sassians, I didn't even care about the library. I care about the comment. Before Tailwind was cool. They were cool before whatever. Like, that's amazing. They're a trendsetter. So I love that. The education, great. That's fantastic. The fact that it's short, but like what you got out of it, I dug. The skills, helpful. It's fine. I think the only thing from experience that's super confusing is like, is that a promise all that joke? Like, you're doing two. That's the only thing that was kind of like off the chain. But I do like how you prominently put, the companies in bold, because like you like a lot of these Californian, and other companies have these really prominent companies, and you're name dropping. That's fantastic. Coinbase, Facebook, Bloomberg, very, very prominent JavaScript helper company. A lot of their developers participate in the language. So that's fantastic. I liked, your really short and sweet stuff. I know Paul's going to say you could do better, and I agree, but I liked getting what you did at those gigs. So yeah, I love that stuff. The only thing that was a little frustrating, and this is because I am a functional programmer myself amongst, millions of OOP people, is that you talk about functional programming in introduction, but nowhere do you use it or show a project or at least, talk about it anymore. Right. And so that would be a question I'd have in the interview. But beyond that, I love this. All right, I'll popcorn to Kevin.
Sure. So, yeah, like you mentioned, overall, I really like it. The casual language thing is a toss-up. In some instances, it might catch attention, but for other companies, it might turn them off. So that's kind of a risk. Let's see. You see where it says Facebook and Coinbase. Facebook, May 2019 to present. Coinbase, October 2021 to present. Is it like, are you working two jobs at once, or is that a typo? So I would kind of fix that one. The skills, I like the skills, but kind of give like the amount that you've used each of the skills. And also, as mentioned before, like what role do you really want next? Like, he's worked at a ton of prestigious companies. So, I'm sure recruiters are absolutely flooding his inbox. So I think his issue would be more so of creating a resume to filter out unwanted hits. Like, okay, you're a senior developer at Coinbase. So would a senior developer job at Walmart or some other company really entice you? Maybe you put something like open to lead positions or something like that. Like what are you looking for next? Because right now it kind of looks like you have exactly what you're looking for. And I would say that's it on my part.
Who you popcorn to? Who you popcorn?
Yeah, let's go to Paul this time.
For me, some echoes of the other resumes, but I have a couple questions on this particular resume. The Coinbase and Facebook call out, Kevin, that you had, I had the same thing. I'm like, are you working 2 jobs? Did you quit this one in like 8 months, 9 months, like the habit of all the rest of these roles here, and go to that? I think you're going to get a lot more questions. Like, obviously having the brand names is fantastic. Like, that's going to open up a lot of doors for you. But if you look at the entire, every single one, he hasn't made it a year. And that, to me, like, I typically have changed jobs like every 2 years. I don't think that's a flag. But if you have never made it to, I mean, like this, Transfix, great. Like, you made it a year. Never made it longer than that. It raises a flag to me of, A, do you have itchy feet? B, are you going to get hired and just leave as soon as you get ramped up? Or C, which is one of the biggest risks you want to minimize for as a hiring manager, is, are you going to be a problem employee? The character that you see here through like the introduction, like it sounds very fun and friendly, and that's fantastic. Sometimes it can be good and sometimes it could not be good, like Kevin was saying. But I think the biggest red flags are, I don't know if you're double dipping, and I don't know if you can actually keep still for longer than 9 months.
Who you popcorn to?
I can't see. Who's gone. I actually want to hear Brandy's thoughts on the design.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I feel like they used a template and that probably all that stuff on the left that says New Jersey and the phone number was probably all left aligned, and they decided to right align it, which I wouldn't do. So I would pop all those back to left aligned, and I would probably minimize the use of those icons, though I don't mind the GitHub one so much. And then I would only use one explanation point on the whole resume. There's 2 in that top area. I would just do one. And then readability greater than complexity. I think that it's not in paragraph form. I almost feel like I would put that on a line lower, or is that really necessary? I think you're talking about yourself, and that's fine, but maybe place that a little bit differently. I love the skills. And then I think what happened was that he probably stopped at Facebook in 2021, given when Coinbase started, which to Paul's point, which is exactly the first thing I thought of when I saw this resume, is you haven't been anywhere that long. And so my biggest piece of advice would be, see if you can make it at least 2 years in your current gig before you keep looking and even work with this resume. I would just try to get 2 years. Now, if that says 2021, 22, so I guess that's 2 years. So then if you've got 2 that are 2 years at the top, that's starting to look better, I would even try to go 3 years. That's just me personally. But yeah, I would work on the alignment a little bit in the layout.
Who you popcorn to?
Who didn't go?
No, Paul.
Paul went.
I just went.
I'm just kidding. Patrick went.
My name is Patrick. It's not the Krusty Krab.
I introduced you as Patrick, but we didn't actually introduce you as Patrick. So sorry. It's just like that dude that we reviewed his resume, and he was like, "When?" And then he gets a job. That guy.
I was like, I don't need your resume advice, Brandy. I'll get my own job. And I really could have used your resume advice. I could have used all of y'all's resume advices like 2 years ago, probably. But that's neither here nor there.
Sorry.
Can we scroll all the way up, or are we all the way up? Okay. Okay, 2 things. I'm just going to talk about the introduction, and then I'm going to talk about the resume as a whole. Resume as a whole, I know this guy is hot. Like, he does apparently good work if he got into Facebook. So he's, in a different tier, like the Ivy League of development, Facebook, Coinbase, all that. So definitely desirable on paper. And I'm sure, and not just on paper, but the open source part, Jesse, did you say that he did all of those himself, or he just contributed to them?
That's how I read it. Doesn't mean it was accurate. I just read that and I'm like, bro, like if this is your 4 top tier, like you had me at the first 2. You know what I mean? Like I was amazed. So I have no idea if he actually did those. No idea.
That's what I'm saying. Like I might as well be looking at this from the perspective of an HR person, because I see open source. I'm like, that's great if he's contributing to it on top of being a guy that's worked at Facebook, because he doesn't need to do that. So obviously he loves to code. So I'm gonna interview him, because he'd be a good developer. Then we just have to worry about culture fit. But let's talk about this introduction. Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm all things JavaScript. Aaron, his name is Aaron. I can confirm that in the top left. I'm all things JavaScript. Let's go to top skills. We have JavaScript, React, Recoil, Webpack, Node. What else have we done in the past? Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Angular. It looks like a West Coast startup kind of dude. So, but maybe not Angular. But what else have we done JavaScript? Like where? I see AppScript API, or that's a Google Sheets API. But I guess my point being, if you're all things JavaScript, if we're going to claim that, let's bolster that with some kind of evidence. Again, you have Facebook on your resume, so it's kind of a, who cares? You can say, you can do what you want. I solve problems with code and deploy to production daily. I will immediately go to your GitHub just to see if that's true. I maintain a few OSS libraries and occasionally give tech talks. Again, let's link to that, because if you take the time to maintain a library and if you give tech talks, I want to see that, because then I can really dive deep if I have the time. Now, if I'm someone like Paul and I only have 300 resumes, I'm already on resume number 10 if this was number 1. Functional programming for the win. This is like 4chan talk, and I'm not sure.
Really?
Yeah, Jesse, it is. We're talking professionalism here. Let's keep it.
I'm surrounded by mature people.
That's my point. It's not professional verbiage. It's not something I'm just pretending to be HR here. If I was HR and I read the sentence "functional programming for the win," I would just be
totally hire him for that. I would hire him for that.
Said the functional programming guy, obviously. Okay. Moving on.
That's not it was for the win.
But that's what I'm saying. If I read functional programming for the win, and I'm sure this guy is great at it, given the fact that he can get whatever job he wants, it seems. The point being, like, you want to present yourself for the job you want, not the job you have. It seems like the job you have is senior front end engineer. The job you probably want is architect or something above that. Let's talk like that on paper. And I'm being really critical because this guy has the chops clearly, and it drives me nuts how poorly formatted it is, because this is like a D resume and it could be an A+ with all the stuff that he can do and all the stuff that he's done. Aaron, you can do so much better, and I think you know that. Readability greater than complexity. Again, that's going to be more geared toward, like, talk about that in the resume, or talk about that in a project, or under here. I'm wanting this in one of your experience points.
I thought you were going to say make your resume readable. I was waiting for that one.
Honestly, like, a lining thing, like Her Majesty said, left align things. Like, I'm not going to say no to that. I do like in the open source part, if the title open source and portfolio and contact and education, if all of that was right aligned, that'd be one thing. But again, that would be kind of jarring and non-conventional and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I guess if we're going to talk about layout, like open source, that part is great because I like how everything's right aligned, except for the title. Open source is left aligned, but then we get to education and everything is left aligned. So it's like, you're a front end engineer. Let's work on our layout, right? I'm being critical here because I'm the jealous junior developer that doesn't work at Facebook.
Paul,
okay.
If you saw this in a pile of 300 resumes, would you or would you not remember this resume as the guy who got life wisdom from the pavement?
Life wisdom from what?
Bottom left.
That pisses me off because I used to
this is so hard knocks.
I used to knock doors. I did that for 3 years, and I would never put that on my resume. Take that crap off now.
But would you remember him? Answer the question. Would you remember him or not?
I'd remember him, and that I'm not interested in hiring him.
Ah,
I'm very critical, but
he's a privileged FANG developer that doesn't need to know how to write a resume. Why did he submit this?
Exactly.
I'm
Go get
fuming.
your $1 million job somewhere
I
else,
think he
buddy.
should put that stuff on his website. Have a link to his website. I hear what you're saying. You're worried this won't ever get to Jesse. Jesse would hire him, but it won't get to Jesse because it has to go through HR.
Exactly.
But I do appreciate some of what I'm seeing there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you got to remember.
Brian,
Just
help.
everyone's got these different opinions today, right? And that's
Yeah.
fine. Everyone can have different opinions. But the fact that we all have different opinions about this resume means that you're going to get binned by some HR person if they're like, oh, I don't like this. Boom.
Yeah. If I put my hiring manager hat on, then I don't even read the objective. I just don't. That's not the first thing I read. It's just,
Really?
This is just who I am. Yeah. I look at experience and I'm like Coinbase, Facebook, Bloomberg, and I'm like senior. And then I'm like, okay, 3 jobs in senior, like how many years at each? Wait, are you hopping around a little bit? Like, and it's okay, to hop around. I'm not saying you got to be at some job for 10 years in tech. That's not true. But I'm like, June to May, that's less than a year. May 19th to present. Oh, wait, there's 2 jobs. Wait, why is he at Coinbase and Facebook and those are both present? Like, are you stacking? Are you job stacking? Like that looks like an error. So maybe you guys covered that already, but if you're job stacking, like, do I want to hire you if you're job stacking, and you're not putting everything into it? I probably wouldn't. I would probably try to disguise that a little bit more if I was actually doing that. But I like that it's memorable, but I do respect the feedback that there's probably some retentive recruiter that would bin this and I would be mad at them. But if I never see it, there's survivor bias, right? So, but like, I'm not the first person looking at resumes at any like job that I've had where I've been a manager for some time. I don't know if we've gone through this or not, but even the active me reaching out to other people on LinkedIn, a lot of that at the tech companies I've worked for is recruiters like doing SOBO, which is like send on behalf of, which is where a recruiter uses my account to reach out and pretends to be me. And so they get their first message is like hey, we've been looking at your profile and we're really interested in talking with you. And it looks like I'm sending it, but there's a recruiter doing that work for me. I care a lot about the messaging of when those go out, because sometimes it says I've looked at your profile and I'm like, no, that's BS. Brian has not looked at your profile. Do not write that. You can say my team or our recruiting team has looked at it, but I think it's low integrity to say I looked at your profile when I didn't. So I don't allow recruiters to do that. But if I saw this, the equivalent of this in a LinkedIn profile, I would want to talk to this person.
You would?
I would, but it doesn't mean
okay.
Well. But I worked at Coinbase for a year, so like I'm already like jaded and like biased in this case. But I would want to talk to this guy. But I will tell you this: when Kevin sent this resume out, of the 3 or 4 that I looked at, this was my favorite of the 3 from a hiring manager perspective. It was easy to see the credibility in the companies that this person had worked for. And I immediately sent a LinkedIn request to connect with this person before we even had this. Before we even had.
For the record, on the podcast, I do not have a LinkedIn request from him, so I just let it throw that.
Yeah. So I reached out to him and I said, "Oh, hey, like he worked there when I worked there. I should talk to this guy, see what it's like." So those are my thoughts. I do find it really annoying now, the right aligned stuff. Now that someone pointed it out, like that's really bugging me. I don't know if I would have picked. I don't know if I would have picked up on it myself, but I don't like the dots in the line. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah.
That's bothering you because the text to the left doesn't align with them.
Well, even if it was left aligned, I would still be like, why are there bullet points for those 2 things? Oh, there's one at the top too. Yep. It looks like a timeline. Yeah. It looks like a timeline. I don't think you need it. I mean, the text size is different enough. It's just The line makes sense. Would you need the line if it was left aligned? Probably not. Would it still be visually compelling? Maybe. But honestly, I care more about the right half of this than the left half. So I would almost invert these. Like if I'm thinking the stuff more to the left and more up is usually what people read just because we're used to menus being there and nav bars and websites. And if I'm a front end React dev, don't I know from my UX experience that like upper left is where I expect to find things? Well, right now that's like the phone number, the state they live in, and their email address. Like, no, I want to see like the top skills, the experience of the intro. So I would at minimum swap these columns. And then it wouldn't look as goofy with right aligned if that if that column was on the right, because it would be farther away from the other text, right? So it wouldn't be such.
What do
have
they
a
say
question
about
for the
geniuses?
entire
They
panel.
have like really bad handwriting because like
Yeah.
they're so smart. So like this kid, he's got the top companies and all this open source. He ain't got no time for resume.
Yeah, well,
No
then he
time.
should delegate. Like, he should know enough about situational leadership framework in order to say he's not
Ooh.
the expert. That's fine. He should hire Paul and then have someone else do it for him, right?
Y'all are raising the bar.
He definitely should have
Yeah,
used
love
Comic Sans on this.
Stop.
I have a question for the panel, actually.
What's that?
What you got?
If y'all are ready. If you are, I'm gonna assume that he's job stacking because that is
Yeah.
a common thing. If you are job stacking, but you are looking for a change in your employment, or you're looking to go from 2 jobs to 1 new job entirely, however you want to do it, you're on the job market. How do you, Brian? You said to better disguise it. How do you do that? What are the options?
I mean, okay. So I would never job stack. So like everything I'm about to say comes from a philosophical difference, right? I wouldn't do that.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I would job stack with a side gig and then a primary set of employment. I would do that, right? But maybe I'm just too old to see job stacking as like viable. But I would always kind of be like, it would be hard for me to say when I look at someone's GitHub profile or I'm talking to this person about their ability to like check in PRs with regularity. Like, hey, your GitHub profile's not very green, bro. Like, what's going on? And I knew that they were job stacking. Like, that would be really hard for me to swallow because I'd always be kind of like, are they taking time away? Like, it would influence the kind of feedback I would give somebody. So I've never interviewed someone that was open about job stacking. And in remote,
exactly.
it's become a lot more commonplace, whether people are willing to admit it or not. I don't know. Like, I have intentionally omitted experience from my resume because it wasn't really going to help me anymore to get a job. So one thing I could argue is he probably doesn't need Coinbase and Facebook, quite frankly, to get his next job. Right? He probably needs one. I don't think there's a company out there that's going to see Coinbase and say, oh, not good enough. Oh, but Coinbase and Meta. Okay, yeah, okay, well, we'll interview you. Like, I just don't.
Exactly.
And so what are, again, $100 a word, are you increasing the likelihood someone will reach out to you with having both of those entries there? I would probably pick one or the other, the one that's most relevant. You know, if he's going for FinTech and he wants to go work for Jump Crypto, then I would put Coinbase on there, right? And if he was going for something that was more social media, I may put the Facebook one on there. And remember, the resume is an exercise in, can you filter down and accurately like coalesce and condense what it is you think the recruiter wants to hear about from the unabridged dictionary that is your LinkedIn profile, right? They should not be the same. I disagree. Like, I philosophically, I don't think they should be the same. I think the resume is an exercise in the recruiter seeing that you can filter down based on the descriptions of the job, based on the qualifications. And that's the first screen. The first screen is, do you know what we're looking for? Because if your resume has a bunch of stuff on it that's not related to what we're looking for, or can't be reasonably interpreted to be useful to know, a lot of recruiters will put you in the bin because you didn't filter down. And that's actually a minor form of age bias, in my opinion. But it does happen. Absolutely happens. I didn't get some interviews until I removed the year from my graduation for college, and until I limited my experience to the last 10 relevant years of experience on my resume. And then I started getting callbacks when I didn't before. So,
And of course, you took the job stacking off the resume as well. That's
oh yeah,
what
I
really
don't job
did.
stack, you know.
I really value that insight, by the way.
Yeah.
The thing you said about making LinkedIn and your resume is supposed to be tailored. Your LinkedIn shouldn't be the same.
Yeah,
What if
abridged,
it is
unabridged.
Yes. What would you say if someone is a junior okay, so like 2.5 months ago, I was on the job hunt. And to me, like everything was more or less the same except for the resume, but I was still looking more or less for the same thing. I was looking for a junior Java role. My LinkedIn was junior JavaScript developer. My GitHub was junior JavaScript developer. At what point can you tailor it further? I mean, yeah, you can. Talking about, Angular versus React versus Vue, different technologies, but oh no.
Sorry, I lost the track of the thought.
Yeah,
there.
I did too. It kind of went off the rails
Okay,
there.
all right,
I
good.
guess I guess
We're aligned then. Perfect. Okay, good. So
I think the issue is when I was doing this before LinkedIn, my whole shtick was you do not have a resume. You have resumes.
Yep.
And it's a fluid document that's tailored for the position you're looking for.
it's
And
classes.
if it's a very
right?
design heavy thing, I would change it. And that lens is for if I were working at an agency that was very interested in After Effects and video composition, they would want me to know the HTML5 video API and streaming options like the back of my hand. Of course it's JavaScript, but like what is the background to that? That resume looked completely different, including my 10-year history at the time of all the video stuff involved. And so now that's hard because you can go to LinkedIn, Twitter, blogs. How I have the same question that I think Patrick's alluding to. At what point are you allowed to have your resume tailored so much so that it looks different from your LinkedIn? How do you handle that?
I'm okay with
LinkedIn.
I'm okay with it. If LinkedIn had an option where it was like, hey, pick the drop down that represents the lens that you want to see on Jesse. Do you want to see Jesse the AV specialist or Jesse the whatever? But they're not going to offer that. It's too
Are you a
complicated.
product guy?
I was TPM for 10 years. So and then I was engineer for 10 years, and then I was an EM for 10 years. So I have done a lot of things, and I've been a data analyst and a business analyst and a .NET developer and a game developer. I've done a lot of things. I'm 1,000 years old. So, there's nobody this is more true for than me, because if I was trying to apply for a TPM role right now, and it was on a platform team at a tech company, I would talk about my work being a TPM on a CI/CD team. And I'll say, hey, we extracted out all of the stuff so none of our clients needed to know about how data was stored behind the scenes. And we supported a 30x reduction in commit to deploy start delays while supporting a 10x increase in volume. And we did that in 12 months. Boom, that sounds cool for someone who cares about a TPM role. And sure, I did that work. But if I'm a manager and I'm applying for an EM job, I probably wouldn't talk about that. I would talk about leading communities of practice at Zillow and Coinbase, each that had 150 managers in them, where I led topics of discussion for everybody to become better people managers. But that doesn't really resonate on the TPM lens, right? But the other CI/CD one doesn't really resonate on the leader one either, because it's I'm not going to be writing that spec. I mean, I could. I don't like writing specs anymore, but I'm okay with it, because I think.
But you're okay with, so all of that you said would be on your LinkedIn as a informational way, but the resume you would accentuate towards that position, and you're okay with those differences.
I'm totally fine.
One who's applying.
I think it's impossible to avoid once you get more than 10 years of experience, especially if you're not staying within sort of one vertical within tech. There are people who build their career a really narrow set of Lego blocks, really tall and really narrow, but it's not very stable, right? And then they suddenly want to not do that. They want to do something that's non-engineering, and they struggle. But for me, where I have more like a pile of sand, where it's a very wide base supported and a lot of different perspectives, there's no way I can make my resume look like my LinkedIn profile and have it not be it's putting things on there that I know people probably don't care about. Like, why would I do that? That just seems like it's not useful once you get a certain amount of experience. You now need to tailor. Early career, put everything on there because you're just trying to show people you could do the job. But later on, I'm going to filter it down, and they may find things on my profile that they want to bring up in the interview. Tell me about this community of practice, or tell me about working in CI/CD. And I'd be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And that to me shows they did some homework too. So yeah, a resume is a marketing document, just like Eric says. I am expecting them to be different for L5 and above. That's probably the cutoff for me, especially at staff. At staff, you've got to get done all sorts of stuff that it's not going to probably be terribly relevant. That's on LinkedIn, but not on the resume. So
Yeah, I got a quick question.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So in regards to language, you know, when people put stuff like, okay, as a developer, I saved company $5 billion and increased performance 10x. Like, do y'all look at that as like they're fluffing up the resume? Because like, how do you know how much money you saved the company as a developer?
Well, that's the question I want to ask in the interview. So I want to talk to that person though. Paul, what do you've been around the block? What do you?
It depends on, is it relevant and believable, right? Like if you're a junior engineer and you save the company $20 billion, it can go two ways, right? Like one, and if the company's only worth 5 million, you're probably lying, right? But if you have quantifiable, data driven, like as engineers, you know, we're objective, analytical people. And if you're saying, hey, I cut down the CI/CD pipeline by 80% and dropped it from 10 minutes to like 1 minute, that's not 80%, but whatever. That's something specific and measurable that you can put on your resume. And then you can talk about how you did it.
Yeah. I worked on a growth team at Coinbase, and our team had maybe 8 devs. I mean, we delivered like $250 million in incremental revenue in 1 year.
Awesome.
And if someone says, well, how did you do that? It's like, well, here's all the features we did, and here's the A/B experiments we ran in our platform, and you can see what the treatment is versus the control. We turned it on at this date and compared to controls to acknowledge the variation in market conditions, because they don't stay the same in crypto all the time. Then I can say, well, look, this is how much, and we have some global holdbacks as well, where I can say these people never got those experiences, and so I have statistically significant confidence. We can attribute that to the work we did. But that conversation, to Paul's point, is the value. Is like, can they walk me through this not being all smoke and mirrors?
Yeah, I just got one more question. What do you think about the casual language, especially once it's run through like a computer and all the formatting is stripped out? Like seeing something like, I'm an awesome JavaScript developer, especially for a role like an architect or something. Do you think that's kind of a detriment, or is that perfectly fine?
Paul?
I'll let Patrick go first because I like his mic.
It is a Nady RS-M4 ribbon mic.
It sounds fantastic.
Really? Okay, I was worried. I've recorded a lot of different. I have a musical background. It's really good. It's really cheap. It's like $40. Really good. If you want to talk about music, I can tell you all the good things you can do with it. Anyway, I know Jesse would love this person because they use For the Win in the. Is that what it was? It was like functional programming.
Well, hold on.
You know, I got
no.
You know, I got.
Here's the issue. Here's the issue. The thing I found fascinating is that he actually worked at Accenture, at least as his first job. Okay. When I was at Accenture, twice I got in trouble because of just, like Kevin was saying, using language in front of executives, our executives, not the clients. And because they were just so approachable. And that's fine that they're approachable. It's amazing, but you still have to be mature and an adult for them to have a reasonable desire to want to communicate with you when you're being weird. So when we were hiring for Accenture, the issue was you are going to go from a client, you're going to represent a massive company. We have a lot of expectations, professionalism, and so you have to do that. When you're at a product company, the number one thing is revenue and or users. Those are important. Nobody cares if you're a crackhead. We want your skills. And so the context in which you're hiring is important. So, and to be clear, before he changes his LinkedIn, go read it. Like the whole thing. It's amazing. You think this resume is crazy. His LinkedIn's off the chain.
Yeah.
Can we pull that up? Can we pull up
Yeah.
his LinkedIn?
I think
So
I
you
think
guys
there's
were
a.
talking
Oh, sorry. Go
about,
ahead, Jesse.
Sorry,
Okay.
you were talking about how it could be different on the resume and different on LinkedIn. Well, when he talks about some of the stuff, he says, senior front engineer, Facebook. I worked entirely on internal tools while at Facebook. This enabled me to interact directly with my customers, other developers. I love that he said that. I love that he talked about interacting with his customers. I don't know that I would have said I worked entirely on internal tools. I don't know. I would have called it out that way, but I love that second sentence about work interacting directly with your customers. I think all developers should do that personally. So I love seeing that, and I wish that had been on the resume.
Yeah. I think there's an important like procedural note to make here too. Like at a bigger company versus a smaller company, this process might work really differently. So like Paul, you're still at Microsoft, yeah?
Unless I get that email tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Oh, you didn't get the mail? Okay, sorry.
You got a great attitude about that, man.
Sorry.
Just dismiss that account action required on your phone. It's totally fine. Like everything's fine. So I don't see a resume usually until I already have an interview booked on my calendar from a recruiting coordinator. So like what's really important to understand for like a Zillow and a Microsoft and a Coinbase in my experience is it's not like this resume is like I'm going to read it before I decide to meet with this person. That's not how it's ever worked in the last 10 years for me. At smaller companies, it might be different, but an RC, like not even a recruiter, because recruiters are paid too much money to do the logistics work. You hire recruiting coordinators to do all the calendaring and everything. So a recruiter has looked at this resume. If I see this resume, I am excited because I think I'm going to have a good conversation, and it's going to be different and probably memorable. And I'm going to look forward to talking with this person, with Aaron. But the decision's already been made whether I'm going to talk to Aaron and I don't ever see the resume. And so that's the important distinction to make here. I would love to see a resume that's different and unique enough that I want to have a good conversation, because oftentimes I don't get to have good conversations in interviews, but is also good enough to pass the recruiter. So like an ideal resume for me is something with a lot that we could dig into while still maintaining the consistent questions I have to ask in every interview, because I can't vary what those questions are for bias reasons. But that I can see that there's some interesting stuff we'll get to talk about, but also made it to me in the first place.
You hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
Hit it for the audience that it's going to be going to.
Yeah.
So I was the target audience of Aaron. Got it.
So I looked at Mr. Cordova's LinkedIn. He was at Facebook until October 2021, then went to Coinbase. So it looks like he's not job stacking. So for all those that see that as job stacking, as apparently we have, I mean, that's just like straight to the bin. When in reality, it doesn't look like he's actually doing that.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's just a lot of questions.
Well, little things like that clearly had a bad impression. At least 3 people in here thought he was job stacking, and it was probably an innocent mistake. I always send it to a recruiter friend of mine and Her Majesty to check, and they find those little things all the time, which is embarrassing. So definitely have somebody who's not you look at it. Seems stupid, but like a misspelling to me, no big deal. But if you've ever been on the internet, misspelling really offends people. They're frustrated. They won't talk to you. It's crazy. The reaction difference. So extremely important.
I mean, it's a law of numbers too. Like, I don't know if this is still true, Paul, at Microsoft, but I left Microsoft because internal mobility was just so hard for me as a senior PM, because the depth of expertise you had to move from one division to another was just really difficult. And so day one, something would show up on Whack Whack Career, and there were like 400 applications already. And what was happening is people who had access to the intranet were scraping those pages and automatically applying to jobs that were like 4 levels away. Like, it was a level 59, like somewhere in like Asia, that was like applying for like a level 62 job. And you were just like,
That's
how is a
hilarious.
hiring manager? And so like 3 days would go by and you'd have 700 internal applicants. And then you're like, you'd spend so much time just filtering out garbage. And it was awful. And then at some point, it's like you literally can't even spend 1 minute per applicant when you have 700 internal applicants. What do you do to bulk, like dismiss people? And at some point, the bar starts to get higher and higher. And then you just open yourself up to you misspelled objective at the top of your resume. Like, I'm sorry, you're out. Like, and that's not fair. And it's not fair. And yet I probably have to do that because someone else didn't. And if someone else didn't, and they took that extra step that Jesse just mentioned, then I have to show preference to the people who put in like just this much more work, because it was the way you distinguished yourself in the first 30 seconds.
Give them a coding assessment, then you'll only have like 20 applications.
Yeah. I have strong feelings about coding assessments. We don't have time to get into that, but yeah.
I would love to hear them, but if you just say we don't have time, then
Look, 3 resumes that were submitted to Coder Conversations, and not one had any Lee code on it. I wonder why that is.
Yeah. Take home assessments.
Project work.
Take home assessments to me. I'm gonna be a little controversial here, but take home assessments are a minor form of age bias. They just are, because the person who has 3 kids and one of them is special needs at home and is trying to ferry people back and forth, that gets a 30-minute exercise that's really like you're expecting them to do 6 to 8 hours of work. You're telling that person that they can't apply for this job, and it's because of the responsibilities they have outside the workplace. It's really bad for product. For entry level, well, but then if you're treating an entry level person differently than you're treated, like, that is textbook age bias, right? Like, it's worse for product, because at product they're like, write a spec, and you're like, oh my god, are you for real? Like, right now, like, give me a break. I know people who've gone through this. They applied for a principal PM role, and it said write a 6 to 12 month strategy doc, okay, as part of the application process. They did it. They did amazing. They didn't get the job. Then the job was reposted as a senior PM role, and they're using that strategy for free. And that happens a lot if you are over 40. If you are over 40 and you tolerate someone taking work from you for free, this will happen a lot more than you think. I know 3 people this has happened to. I won't name names, but and now they're like, no, like, you want to do that? Like, I'm happy to do this work on a contract basis. I'll charge you $500 an hour, and then I'll go do this work for 8 hours. But I'm going to get $4,000 for doing this work, not for free, because you're stealing money. You're stealing my intellectual IP, like my thought process IP in this process.
Okay, so I really appreciate this perspective, because I didn't fully understand. Because I mean, I'm 28.
You can't be expected to. It's not an insult to you. It's literally you haven't gone through that.
Yeah, I haven't gone there.
You haven't had those experiences yet. Yeah.
So here's what happened with this job. They gave me a coding assessment, and it was like, just build some generic this and that. And I'm like, okay. So and I just read an article about how people can take like coding assessments, and then they'll use it as company code and not hire you and essentially get free work, like to your point. And I'm like, okay, so I'm, my guards are up, but the guy was like, just build whatever you want within this confine, and it was just like free range, open season, kind of do whatever you want. So I'm like, okay, he definitely seems like he's not gonna, use it maliciously and not hire me. I mean, I got hired or whatever, but I have heard some horror stories to your point, like this guy, I think it was like a Fang, or I guess Mang now. I like Fang better. Fang sounds cooler. It was a Fang interview.
Manga. Come on.
Manga, yeah. Yeah, that's right. It was a manga interview. And basically it was a hyper specialized take-home assessment. and he didn't do it, but then a colleague of his did, and it ended up being something that the company used and didn't pay for. So it's criminal.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Stealing code.
it is.
I appreciate you answering the question, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's how I feel. It's like the problem is that here's the problem. Like a really high performing L5 PM might be expected to be able to do this thing in say like 2 hours. But if you stand out because you put more work into it, because you have more bandwidth because you spent 10 hours on it rather than 2 hours, you might place higher in order to make it to the next step in the interview process. But when they give it to you, there's a difference between them saying, well, a really awesome person could do this in 2 hours. I'm like, okay, I get it. But what you're really saying is that the average person might take 6 hours to actually complete this assignment to a bar where we would let them through. And that's really the risk. Because now does that person, I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit too hippie, but I just...
No, keep going, please.
Like, it's one thing, how many people on this call or listening here are applying to one job at a time, right? Like if you're doing a 6-hour assignment for job one and your odds of getting to the next step are like 10%. So then you're doing 8 others and you have a current job. Like I have very strong feelings about how engineers should be interviewed. And I only know of maybe one company that's trying to do it that way.
Can you name them so we can emulate them?
It's Stripe. So, and it goes something like this, like round 0, as an IC engineer, you and I will have a conversation.
The zero joke?
No, it's not. I
just want to make sure.
Yeah, they didn't get it. So round 0 is you and I pair on a failing unit test. And we talk about why, and you figure out why it's failing, and then you fix it. And I introduce you to a code base. That's round 0. Round 1, we refactor some part of that code base because it's inefficient, because we looked at a profiler and it's like costing, the big O notation sucks, or the AWS costs are through the roof or something, right? And now about the same code base. So now you're learning more. Then we introduce an architecture document that's going to take this monolith and break it up into microservices. And you're going to comment on that document and read other people's comments. So I can see how you interact in a doc, because that's a lot of engineering at L5, right? L5 plus. And then I'm going to send you through a simulator where you're troubleshooting a small incident, like a P3 incident in this code base. How do you work under pressure when there's a live site issue and you need to notify senior leadership about how this is working? So I'm going to get you in a Slack room and we're going to show, you're going to be the coordinator for this incident or the scribe, and you're going to go through this. And then I'm going to pair you with someone who's pretending to be an L3 engineer that has a really obvious mistake that they're not seeing in their PR. And you have to convince them something they think isn't broken is broken, and you need to do it without sounding like a jackass. How are you going to teach that person to find a problem in their code without being like, you idiot, why? Because there's a lot of brilliant jerks in tech, right? Those are the things I want to know whether you can do. Now, here's the problem with that approach. You got to write that in every single language, everything I just described. You got to put that in Golang. You got to put that in C#. You got to put that in Rust. You got to put that in a bunch of other things, so that someone who comes in isn't at a language disadvantage just because they don't know Golang. They can't be penalized for that. That's the most realistic way to evaluate whether an engineer would probably work well. And almost nobody does it that way because it's very expensive.
Brian, do you have metrics on who passes what stages? Because I could pass every single stage you mentioned except for 2.
Yeah, I don't, because nobody's ever done it that way. I tried to make this we were going to experiment with this at Zillow, but we got all the way to the working group of the directors and the senior staff engineers all got together, and we were like, this is brilliant, we should do it. Okay, who's going to volunteer to create these code bases for this completely contrived examples? It was like crickets, right? Like nobody wanted to do the work. You could probably do this open source.
I'll do the Perl one. Perl one.
Exactly.
Shut up.
like the build engineer was like, I'll do it in Python, because he's used to not getting any credit for all the work he does, so he's fine with it. But so
that's awesome.
me spouting off.
People are I'm glad people are trying it though. It's cool that you pretty much had everyone on board. It was just a massive undertaking from an engineering perspective and money to actually do it.
Yeah.
But at least it seemed like everyone was on board. They just couldn't manifest money. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear. It's changed.
It's a very long-term sort of experiment, because once you change those things, you got to like check 6 months later and 12 months later that the people that went through that treatment in the interview process, are they doing better? Are there fewer bad hires? Right? Because we are always optimizing in our interview process for avoiding a bad hire, even if it means excluding good hires, because it's just too costly to make a bad hire.
And then you have to optimize your onboarding, which is what I'm the guinea pig for at my company. Like I'm the first developer they've hired in 5 years, I think.
Oh wow!
Which is so it's funny. Like
so the docs are completely up to date. All the comments make sense.
Well, they will be when Patrick's done updating them. I mean, yeah.
So actually, yeah, they're a lot of their docs are actually up to date, which is the surprising part. Like to your point. But basically, the company, the founder retired. It was like 12 people. The founder retired. A few people left with him, and then the current co-owners bought the company. And then they're like, "Well, there's a lot of opportunity here. Let's get at least one more dev." And that was me. But they had no idea what they were doing in terms of onboarding. So it was like throwing me in the fire. It's like, you're going to learn .NET through project work. And I'm like, okay, cool. And now we're doing Pluralsight like for half of my day. And it's like, I see this other new dev that just got hired a few weeks ago. And it's like, he's writing unit tests half the day. And then half the day is just Pluralsight lectures. I'm like, you haven't even gotten into the wild yet, brother. You're not even writing .NET codes, because I attribute it to being like the sole survivor in an airplane crash. Like you're hacking through a jungle just to find a water source, and then once you find the water source, you turn around and all the vines have grown back, so you have to hack your way back and you'll get lost. And it's like, I described that to him. He's like, oh, well, maybe I'll just like keep doing unit tests. So to be honest, like I know everyone hates on C#.NET, and I did until I got this job. It's made so many advances just since people have, like, it has fat arrow functions, it has expressions, it has switch expressions, it has like everything that I was using in JavaScript, and it has types, which, you know, TypeScript, I was using that too. And that, you know, so I guess I have to like I have to plug C# here, because I don't know.
Magic. Yeah,
it's magic.
It's
yeah,
awesome.
you're a Microsoft. You're a Microsoft, of course. Yeah, there
I
you go.
love Objective-C, okay? I'm a glutton for punishment. I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go. No, if you're a glutton for punishment, you would get down with like
Hardcore,
VB6 or whatever, which is what we have legacy code in.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm still a junior. I'm gonna ride that wave until it's gone.
Yeah. I mean, they're all.
Well, I learned a lot. I think Brian and Paul in particular, thank you very much for coming, guys. I learned a lot today. Just listening to y'all talk about, like, my resume's trash now, which is
no, yeah, absolutely. Mine was trash before this call. Now it's like uber trash. It's Pearl, you know, or whatever Jesse always says. No, I really, Kevin, thank you for having me, because I feel like I just like almost don't even deserve to be here, and I'm like learning so much just being like 2 months and some change into the industry, and like being able to have, I have just enough of an intelligent or an educated opinion to understand what is being said and to be able to contribute. I just thank you for having me. I just want to say that.
Hey, man, we definitely needed your perspective, man. Just seeing how things are from a junior standpoint, you're closer to the ground than us, so you know you have a lot of valuable insight. So we're definitely glad to have you aboard.
And he's got those smooth radio ribbon mic sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to the podcast. I mean, I was using my MacBook microphone. It was horrible. My mom was listening to the podcast on her phone, and she's like, I didn't know you had a lisp. I'm like, Mom, I don't. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh my God. Wow.
It's like you raised me from birth. Like,
I'm gonna like your mom if I ever get to meet her. She sounds cool.
She is. We actually both, there's so many parallels with us. Like, we both had an apartment that no one heard of in the area. Like, there's this apartment in Strange Matter that no one knew existed. and she lived in Florida, and she lived in an apartment that no one knew existed. And then after that, like our lives from like 18 to like where I'm at now in 28, like it was so many parallels. It's bizarre.
Is the
It's
career
just-
I feel I didn't realize you were so early career, Patrick. I would have given you more helpful advice. Like for
No, you gave me some incredible advice, Brian. To be honest with you, like I asked the questions to which the answer I was looking for.
Okay.
I did not phrase that right. That's not the point. I'm still learning how to write code, still learning how to speak the language, apparently.
Well, if that's the case, I guess I have two parting things of advice I have to give you if you're that early career. So one is layoffs are like being rear-ended in a car. They're like 95% of the time has nothing to do with you whatsoever. So that's like the one thing you have to take away from this. I've been through 5 layoffs and I've survived 3, one of which I shouldn't have survived, and been through 2 others. And the very first real job I had out of school that was a real career job I got laid off from, and it was devastating. It took me like 6 months to recover from it. And the last one was like 6 months ago, and it was the best day in the last 5 years of my career. It was amazing. Like I was 2 days from volunteering for a layoff, and then I got laid off. So instead of quitting for 0, I got $60,000 to leave a job I was planning to leave anyway. So like it was amazing.
Nice
It is the reason I am a career coach. They funded my startup, like but I was prepared for it only because I went through it really hard and took it personally the first time. So that's the first lesson I will always tell people early career. Second is when you're looking for jobs and you get the no's, recognize there is a global stack ranking of sorts of everyone who applies for a job. And there is an absolute bar that it's like anyone below this, we're just going to keep the role open. We don't want any of these people. Like they're not good enough, right? But almost nobody, very few people after they have 3 to 5 years of experience is ever below that bar. They're all above the we would hire you bar. You're just not the one that said yes first. And I think that's a really important philosophical difference that people have to understand. When you get 100 no's, it's not because you weren't good enough 100 times. It's because someone that was like 1 millimeter better than you just happened to say yes before they called you, or they got back to them first. And so there is a relative yes list. And this happens a lot with my athletics background in coaching, like for club volleyball. But, you know, even if you're top 5, the number 1 says yes to like Meta, right? So they say no to this job. Someone else is waiting to hear back on a competing offer and it's not high enough. And so they just happen to say yes to the job you wanted. And that means you get the no, but not because you couldn't do the job. You could absolutely do the job. It's just someone else said yes first. And so I think that's a really important philosophy to have, especially like in the current market conditions as people look for new roles.
That's a fascinating perspective. The layoffs, definitely, I understand how you wouldn't want to take those personally, but not taking a rejection from a company, that one, not taking that personally would be a challenge. Because, like, I'll tell you my first experience. I did 175 applications, just like everyone else does when they're a junior. And it was like for a Bay Area QA engineer role, because I heard, like, if you have issues getting a web dev job, go QA, just try it out. Pivot later if you want to, whatever. And it was like the salary was like 140,000, and at the time I was just like, oh my dear God. And I was like, okay, so first of all, what is being expected of me? Because I know the salary correlates. It's like, no, we're Bay Area, we pay, you know, flat across the scale. This is where we start off. I'm like, okay. I made it to the final round, and the guy, he stopped responding, but then he got back to me and said, hey man, sorry, I've been onboarding the new guy. I wanted to give you the courtesy of telling you we hired him solely because he had 2 years experience specifically with our stack. And I was just like, well, damn. So yeah. And I just like, I didn't take it personally, but it like motivated me to, first of all, never cold apply again, because that was like months of my life. I met Jesse and Kevin through networking on LinkedIn. So definitely all about it, but yeah, no, that's like really awesome advice. Not that I have any frame of reference to know whether it is or not, but it sounds amazing, and I'm definitely going to like let it marinate overnight, and then
there's just a faulty hypothesis that if I'm good enough and qualified, I should get the job offer. That's just not how it works. Often you are plenty qualified. and you don't get the offer. That is what most people experience. It's just they can't tell you that because they're afraid of getting sued. But Paul, I want to hear like what 2 pieces of advice Paul would give to early career.
For early career, I would say figure out what you like, learn from everybody, and be a nice person. Like that's going to get you really, really far. Like to be an engineer with semi-decent social skills who has a good attitude and wants to learn, you'll always get a job. Always.
I appreciate that advice as well. As far as being a nice guy, I definitely believe in karma personally. I don't know about y'all like that. It always like my friend, he's going through some stuff. Like I put it in Kevin's prayer request post. Like his ex is taking him to court over things that he never did, and it's just like a total nightmare. It's like karma comes in this lifetime or the next. I definitely believe in that. So in saying that, with my manager today, I wouldn't say I tortured him with it because he was playing back, but I was talking in pirate for an hour, and he was so we were working on like a Jira task, and he said, have you looked at this? I said, "Arg, I have yet to see the map, Captain." And or just
You
like,
did this for an hour?
I did this for an hour, and he loved it.
Why?
Because my brain, I think I'm gonna be honest, I may be on the spectrum. I really don't know. Like there's some like I just switched. It switched completely into pirate mode, and I couldn't stop. Like it was like my default language just switched into pirate.
I speaking from experience as someone who's diagnosed ADHD inattentive, it probably is. Like if you find it's really hard to focus on something even when you want to, and sometimes you have to play a mind game with yourself to force you to focus. I'm not a doctor, but like if it ever
It's
feels
a
like
coping mechanism.
yeah, it is. It's like, when you take 2 strong magnets of the same polarity and you can't get them, like they're resisting. If your brain ever feels like that, that is often you have to trick your brain into being like, I'm going to count how many times someone says the word or I'm going to talk like a pirate, or I'm going to take notes, right? So that my fingers are busy and I have to listen because people are relying on my notes. I have really bad verbal cognition, so I have to type when people are talking, so I remember what they said. And the typing and the seeing the text is what gives me the recollection, not the hearing.
I can't believe I talked about this on a podcast, but I think it is
normalized talking about
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, no stigma at all, no stigma. I think I did it just because I'm a clown, to be honest.
Except for the C#. That's okay.
Except for the C#, yeah. Yeah, Paul, at least I have someone that can support me on that. No, I just like the fact that everything has a type. Like it has to have a type.
Wait, this is a recorded line. I have no more comments.
Patrick, do you know what a pirate's favorite letter is, though?
What a pirate's favorite letter?
Yeah.
Well, you think it's
we
B
know.
the R.
We know.
But it's B the C.
Tis the C. That's right. Tis the C.
I'm sorry. I had to do the punchline because
Nicely done.
Yeah. I should have let you give. I was a jerk. I should have let you give the punchline.
No, that's okay. We celebrate knowledge here. So.
Yeah, man, it was a fantastic session. Oh, go ahead.
No. I was about to tell the story about the first time I heard that joke, and it's actually probably best that we not record it because it was in Richmond. It was in a sketchy spot. We're not going to do that live. We'll do that another time.
Do that after. Well,
but yeah, I just want to say this was a fantastic session. I appreciate all of y'all guys for stopping in. Brian and Paul, I know both of y'all have coaching services. Did y'all want to talk about it a little bit before we head out?
Brian first.
About it. I definitely
mine's in my name. Come on.
I'm excited. I want to know about it.
You go first.
So for me, hiring manager at major tech companies, I've probably interviewed a couple thousand people, hired a couple hundred people minimum. I've helped about 280 people now get either their first tech role or level up in tech or sales, mostly tech though. A lot of people have doubled or more their pay. That's not everyone, but a lot of people have gotten new jobs quick. Almost all my clients get a new role in 2 to 6 weeks. A lot of them have to stop applying because they're getting so many responses that they just can't like keep up with it. So if you are not getting that type of response and you're interested in chatting, hit me up on LinkedIn, look for my name. I think I might be the only Dakessian, Paul Dakessian, on LinkedIn. My brother Peter is also Dakessian. I have everything from written books on resumes and tech stuff all the way through full-blown coaching. So there'll be a way we can help. And if I can't help, or if it's not in the cards at that time, I'm happy to make any introductions in my network as well.
Cool. I guess I'll go really quick. I've only been doing refactor coaching as a career coach for probably about a year, not too long. So not as many clients as Paul, but I take a very similar approach to career coaching that I did when I was a manager of my direct reports, which is a very people-focused approach to engineering leadership, which for those who've been in tech for more than 10 years is pretty rare. In fact, a lot of people who say your manager doesn't matter just haven't had a good one yet and know how rare it is. So if you have a great manager and you're listening, enjoy every day, because at some point you will get one that isn't as good as the one you have now. So I take my 13 years of coaching experience in athletics and being an engineering leadership, and I bring that into the workplace. There's a lot of things in athletics that make a lot of logical sense that just don't translate into engineering. You know, someone's amazing at kicking the football, you'd get fired as a football coach if you made them the quarterback. And yet that is really normal in engineering leadership. Patrick is amazing at writing highly performant React code. Let's have him work in DevOps, right? Like, it's just like that happens so often. And I just, philosophically, I believe we should spend 90% of our time making our strengths world-class and maybe 10% of our time on our weaknesses, only when that weakness is limiting your team or limiting your career. And so philosophically, that makes me a little different maybe than the average career coach is 26 years in tech and 14 years in coaching and bringing those things together. So if you're interested, you can check me out. So
I'm going to. I mean,
sure.
Yeah,
well, Paul and I are going to coffee chat next week. So
yeah, man.
We're going to do show and tell. So
you're going to teach me how to actually be athletic is what I heard out of that.
There's a reason my camera stops like right here.
I'll trade guitar lessons for some coaching if anyone wants to. I was a music major. But...
Cool. Ukulele or no? I have a ukulele over here somewhere. But... Well, thank you, Kevin.
We used to.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
Kevin, you're the man.
Yeah, thank all of y'all for showing up, man. This was an amazing session. I definitely want to get everybody back together again.
That'd be super fun.
Cool.
Did anybody else have any closing thoughts?
I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
If you need a resume, talk to Paul, talk to Brian. They clearly know what they're doing.
Talk to Paul. Paul's better at resumes than I am.
But on that note, I guess we'll cut this one short. So we'll catch y'all next time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Peace.
Peace.